agenda?
I move that the agenda be approved as motion.
Been moved and properly second. Their agenda is approved by Sandy Dupree and then by Hazel Hunter. All in favor?
Aye.
No opposers? Okay, it's been approved. Okay, this is the section where, and thank you so much for being here today. We have opened it up for public comment, for you to comment in anything that you'd like to. And we know that some of you have already attended our previous meeting where we had the focus meeting on this Sunday. May I see the hands of the number of people who would like to participate with a comment tonight? Okay, that's quite a few. All right. Would you be so kind then, since we have several people, would you be so kind as to try to limit your comments to about 2 minutes, so that will give us a chance that we can get around and we can hear everyone. Is that okay with you? Yes?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Who would like to be the first person? Come on, please. We're going to have to talk loud. We're sorry we don't have the microphones that they had last
I
night.
don't normally speak in public. My name is Susan Campbell, but I care very much for the library. I've been here for 29 years. I just want to say that as a taxpayer, I feel that it is the library's job to provide a diverse range of materials for the community of all walks of life. And it is the parents' job, as stated in the article, I think, that they can screen, particularly what we're talking about as young children's books, they should be with a child anyway to monitor what they're looking at. I don't think it's to say it's a reasonable compromise to put them behind the desk. To me, that's discrimination. I have members in a different community that my niece has a partner with 2 beautiful children. As they come to visit here and want to get a book, if I have to say we need to go behind the desk to get that, doesn't make me happy. And as a taxpayer, I just feel that that the library should provide a diverse range of material. We have a very progressive community with Louisiana Tech. We probably have a lot of family members in this community that are 2 moms or 2 dads with children and pay taxes come to this library. So that's
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Who will be next?
Hi, my name is Claire Roan. I'm a public librarian, but not to this system. I've worked in libraries for 10 years and have been a degree librarian for the past 2 years. One of the things that censorship is that I don't think a lot of people understand, but censorship is the suppression. It's not just the removal, but if you make it harder for people to get those books, it is censorship. And I don't know who all y'all are librarians, but I know Ms. Vivian knows Mr. Raganathan. He is one of our key people that we look to in the library system. And in 1932, one of his 5 tenements was to save the reader time. All patrons should be able to easily locate the materials that they desire in an effective and efficient way. That means those books need to be on the shelf. You shouldn't have to ask permission to get information. We live in a time where information is open to everyone. We live in a time where our community is everyone, and our students, no matter what age, and our library patrons should be able to have access to whatever information is available without asking to see books off of the shelf. Thank you.
Thank you. Who will be next? Young man in the back.
Yes, ma'am. I'll go ahead and talk about my topic, which I think I'm probably the odd one in the room. Let's talk about this a little bit. My name is Chris Garriga. I am one of the owners of Log Cabin and Postulates here in town. I'm going to give you a quick background on why I'm here and some discrepancies I might have. March 16th is a date I'll probably never forget for the rest of my life. A lot of y'all might know what that date is. It's the day me and my wife walked in our restaurant on Monday night about 10 o'clock and had to tell about 88 people they didn't have a job the next day. We had to start over almost from scratch. We were down 374% at one point during the week. Right now we're down anywhere from 9 to 20% as a restaurant as a whole. So when it comes to budget and finances, I would like to try to be in as much know as I possibly can. I know the tax was voted down this past week. I'm not anti-library. I'm not anti-taking care of the books and the people and the things that you take care of. I think we have a wonderful library. I think it's a staple to our community. I think it needs to be funded. But a couple of discrepancies I had that I've seen in our budget from 2020 to 2021, and right now, budgets right now are huge. I mean, we can all sit and talk about what's going on in the world, but we will be probably at 25% or less by the end of the year for restaurants. That means we will have to stop operations where we are, and that would be a huge financial burden to us, huge financial burden to our employees. So we're back up over, actually the employees we actually had before COVID, we're operating with more people now, a higher payroll before even COVID even started. So, you know, with that on the horizon, I mean, it's coming. I talked to somebody just a minute ago, Wilson in Shreveport is overwhelmed with COVID and ICU patients, so that is coming for us. So I would ask the board, before you present a new budget for putting back on the ballot, here's a couple things I found. On travel, I mean, travel should almost be not even an option right now. You had a $30,000 a year budget in travel. You spent $10 last year. That is a 300% increase on a budget item. Building and maintenance. You spent $55,000 in building and maintenance last year. The 2021 budget is $150,000. That's a 272% increase in budget. I mean, over 10 years, that's a $1.5 million in maintenance to this building. The furniture. Last year, you spent $22,000. You budgeted $100,000 for 2021. That's $1 million in a 10-year tax to buy furniture for this place. Acquisition of equipment, you spent $10,000 last year. Your budget is $100,000. That's a $90,000 increase. That's a 1,000% increase in budget items. Right now, these kind of budget numbers, I couldn't acquire those in probably 10 or 15 years. So I think when people saw these budgets, especially myself, you went from a $2.17 billion budget to a $2.77 billion budget from 2020 to 2021. That sparked a fire in me. Because right now, we're budgeting zero or even down. And we're probably on the verge of losing more money as shutdowns come. I mean, I don't see how we're going to keep us open through Christmas personally. I mean, so this hit home to me really, really hard. You upped your budget by $638,000 a month now. $638,000 from 2020 to 2021. There's not a business in America that can pick up a budget besides somebody working for Pfizer. So I just would ask, I don't want to take any time because I think we're on one of the few on this subject, but I mean, we'd be happy to, I'd love to sit down with finance people and look at these budgets and look at things and help y'all get something passed that's realistic to some of the, and it might be realistic to other people, but for people like us, this is a slap in the face and just feels like it's just wrong to businesses like us. So appreciate your time. Look forward to working with Ms. Vivian. I talked to her last night and try to get this worked out for you guys and get something that's realistic for people like me that are looking on different eyeglass than some of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. We will take into consideration your observations and see what we can do. Next.
I'm Lucius McGee from Foxwood neighborhood here in Ruston. I just want to echo some of what Chris had to say. The vote was 57-43 with a very low turnout. And some of that was from the social issues that we're seeing with what's come out with the books. But for someone like me who looks at that, this is a local issue. And what I'm trying to, or want to communicate to you guys is we need to see the vision of the library for a 10-year period. Not just a 1-year period, but a 10-year period. I brought a copy of Mayor Walker's Moving Ruston Forward presentation that he did. This right here cast a vision for what's going to happen in Ruston. And there were taxes involved with this. People had to vote these taxes in. Some people voted no, yes. There are going to be people that are going to vote yes, there are going to be people that are going to vote no. But the big deal is they cast a vision for what they wanted to see for 10 years, and that's what you went to the voters for, was a 10-year tax. So I know that Chris just talked about just 1 year difference there. I want to see 10 years. What's going to happen in 10 years? Where are we going to go? Some of you may be retired by then. Some new people may be coming up. One's going to retire soon. But I would love to see what you guys are going to do forward and let the voters decide right now. Right now, you have not encountered any organized opposition. And so if you can show a vision of where you're going, maybe that organization won't happen. So 10 years ago, a library event center was a good idea. Let's think about, is that a good idea now? Those are things that we need to look at. 10 years is a long time. We need to be looking at what we can do going forward, more online. How are we going to deal with different things? I'm committing to you that I would love to be a part of that process and help. I'm a registered municipal advisor. I know a little bit about money and finances and things like that. So I would be more than happy to assist you guys on how to go about the finances of it, and would be more than happy to help on the vision side. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. McGee.
May I comment on this, or do we wait until they're all
Will
finished?
you wait, please, if you don't mind?
It's okay. I have a positive comment. I like your shirt.
Okay, after Ms. McGee, who's gonna be next? I see a hand over here. Young lady, you're turning in?
Sure. Hi, my name is Amy Smith, and I am also a local patron. Did not grow up in Ruston, but I moved here in the past 6 years, and I just wanted to make a comment about some of the books that were removed from the children's section. I cannot speak to all of them because I haven't read them all, but I did read 2 that were really my only concern at this point. The book George and the book Rick, or the books that I'm referring to. And as a mother of 4 children, I love coming to the library to bring my kids to go and browse the shelves and to pick up books that look interesting to them. As a parent, it is my job and my responsibility to care for my children, to know what they are reading, to know what they are exposed to, and I do my very best to do that. I have to admit that I haven't been the best at that because my oldest son reads too fast for me to keep up with.
Can't hear you. Speak louder.
I will speak louder, you got it. So I will do a better job of that, for sure. But these 2 books, had my son come across them and had I checked them out without a flag saying, hey mom, you might want to pay attention, there's some stuff in here that you may not want your children to read, that would have been very upsetting to me. The book George talks about a boy who considers himself a girl, and that is actually not why I consider that a problem. The parts that I consider a problem are talking about a 4th grader undergoing transgender, or undergoing surgery to become a girl, talking about slipping on girls' underpants and the sensation that goes along with that, talking about being sexually attracted to the same sex, or there's also talk about opposite sex attraction. To me, these things with an 8th or 9th grader are just inappropriate. I would expect perhaps to see these in the teen section, definitely in the adult section, but not in the children's section where my 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old, or 11-year-old can pick them up. The book Rick was actually more disturbing to me, just in the sense that it's a book about a 6th grade boy who's questioning his sexuality, which again is not the issue at hand. But the issue at hand for me was the talk in the book about a boy wanting to see another girl naked, if you know what I mean. Seeing other girls naked and what that made him feel like. Talking about sexual attraction and who the main character might want to do that with eventually. And so, and at the end, he makes a decision that he does not attracted to either sex. And so that kind of pushes the agenda for these kids to make decisions at, what 6th grade would be 11, 12-year-olds. Okay, thank you. to push for them to make a decision. And I think that that's just inappropriate material for young kids to be able to pick up and read.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Who's next? We're gonna go right into front, sir.
Hi, my name is Bobby. I'm here to talk about the books, especially the fact that I've been really upset.
Can't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Master.
Get right back
And
there.
also back here, it's kind of.
I'll try to project a bit more.
Reverb is, can't hear you.
There you go. I'll try to project a bit more. I've been recently upset about.
Move to the side so they can hear you what I'm saying.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you.
All right. So I've been recently upset about the decision to move the books over to the section where they don't like ask, mainly because the problem with that is like she had mentioned before, a form of censorship. Even if one may not traditionally think of it as that, it's kind of putting it out of sight, out of mind. While members of that community, even young as middle school, as many find out at that age, their sexual orientation. That is a form of censorship because these people aren't supposed to be out of sight, out of mind. They are people too. Their orientation is a part of them, just as this is my attraction to women is. And many people find these things out at very young ages, which is the reality of the fact. And if you have a problem with your kids reading that, it should be your responsibility to do so, to read through the books your children are reading. And if you have a problem with that, then you're the one who needs to do something about that. You should not be forcing an institution like the library to make those decisions for you or for other parents. Because once a book is out of sight, out of mind, people are going to start forgetting about it, people are going to know about it. So if people want that representation, which people do call for, which is why I'm here, then it should be exactly what it needs to be. The amount of children's books talking about straight representation, like straight kids and their experiences as young as middle school, there are plenty and numerous amounts of it. Even books like Huckleberry Finn, which I had to read in 8th grade, mention these things as a part of it. But people don't call into arms about that because they see it as normal, which you may agree or disagree, but I don't think it's your decision to call for what an institution should do if others are also calling for representation. If you have a problem with the book, don't read the book, or don't let your kids read the book. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have one here.
My name is Rose Dizzle, and I'm a therapist in town, and I deal with all kind of people, and accept all kind of people. And this is very offensive to me, extremely offensive. I'm with you. It's the parent's job. If your child is reading a book and you're worried about it, then sit with your child and explain the book to the child. Explain transgender. Explain that gay people don't choose to be gay. That gay people go through hell trying to be normal to please the rest of people. The thing that bothers me the most is that we base these things on biblical interpretations. So being gay is bad. But is fornicating being bad? Is adultery being bad?
Yes.
Is any of that being bad? Are we going to do with the adult books? Are we going to take them all off the shelf that deal with fornication and adultery? Are we going to pull them off the shelf and burn them? Are we in 1942 Nazi Germany?
Put them in the adult section.
Come on, where are we? I didn't hear you.
Put them in the adult section.
Yeah.
Your
Put
things
them what?
like adultery, fornication, and stuff, put them in the adult section.
Put them in the adult section. That's where they are. And the children's books are in the children's section. And that's where they are. And we all have to learn about each other and accept each other. And all of this community that talks about being a Christian community, that's a joke.
No, it's not.
That is a living joke. Christian community should love people and accept people, and we don't. We choose what we want to choose out of the Bible. We choose what is right and what is wrong. We choose it. It's our choice. If you had a child that was gay or lesbian, what would you do? Would you throw them out of your house? Many do. I see them. I see those children. I see those adult children in my office suffering with guilt and shame because you have rejected them. And I am sick of this shit. Sick of it. Sick of this hypocrisy and
May I ask a favor of without interruption, even if he or she does not agree with you, because each person has an opinion. And I think it's out of character for us not to be courteous and polite to hear each other out. Would you do that for us, please? Thank you. All right, the next person I saw was a young man sitting here with a checkered shirt.
Thank you. Like most everyone who seems to be here today, with one exception so far, I'm here because of the recent controversy.
Take your text from you.
Certainly, ma'am.
Speak loud.
Yes. I'm here because of the recent controversy, and I'm here to register my disquiet over how this issue has been handled so far. It's my understanding that this board has not been able to gather a quorum for the past 2 meetings, despite facing a high-stakes election for the future of the library. But nevertheless, the board was Johnny on the spot to pull books off of the shelves in response to a few sporadic complaints. The optics aren't good, folks. Beyond that, though, this library is here for everyone in the community, whether Christian, atheist, or something in between, Muslim, Buddhist, it shouldn't matter. Yes, there are going to be things in children's books that have to do with a divergent worldview that are going to make you uncomfortable as a parent, but life in a civil society does not come with a guarantee that you get to be comfortable. That's not part of the deal. So there's really just, there's no reasonable basis to restrict access to a book based on personal discomfort with the contents. If you want to keep your children away from something like that, watch over your children. It's not okay for the government to involve itself in the running of your family when it's something that you don't want the government to do. Well, it's also not okay when it is something that you do want them to intervene in. So you're going to have to choose. Finally, by pulling these books aside, you're setting up one of these things where it's separate but not really equal. You can't separate a portion of your collection and have that material still be equal. And you can't ask patrons to come and ask for permission to view this material and have them feel as if they are being treated equally. Before I sit down, I also want to point out that, how to put this? I know some of you on the board are involved in the community elsewhere. I believe one of you is a guidance counselor at Ruston High or Ruston Junior High. And I would like to appeal to you to consider how your gay and lesbian and bisexual and transgendered students are going to feel when they come to you for advice. Are they even going to do that? Because I guarantee you they're going to find out that you were involved in this decision, and what you decide today, they're going to remember, and it's going to inform all of their other interactions with you. And I yield the rest of my time.
She can go first.
Oh, okay, come on, please.
Okay, I actually prepared a statement. I'm just going to read it because I don't want to.
Okay, hear you.
Hello, my name is Robin Smith, and I am one of the parents that originally emailed the library about a specific book. I would like to begin by saying it's sad that this issue has become an us against them cause. It began with concerned parents advocating for the innocence of their children by requesting the library move 2 particular books, George and Rick, to an age-appropriate area. Just like they have books about homosexuality, they have books
talk one at a time. We're not gonna sit here and argue back and forth across, because that gets zero done.
Gotcha,
Okay?
gotcha.
Thank you.
I understand that many of you read and took at face value the article published in the Daily Leader, in which Ms. McCain reported that none of the books contained sexually graphic material. I would like to tell you all today that that is not true. Reading material that contains references to a 4th grader masturbating and looking at dirty magazines or porn is sexual in nature. Literature that introduces unsuspecting readers to pornography is inappropriate for young readers. This is not about children having access to LGBTQ plus materials. I would have the same opinion if all the characters in the book were heterosexual. However, Ms. McCain has argued that George does not introduce children to pornography. I disagree, and I will quote from the book to let you decide. From the first chapter, that's my little bro, growing up and looking at dirty magazines. Oh, George said out loud. She knew what dirty magazines were. She almost laughed. The girls in the magazines she was looking at wore a lot more clothes than that, even the ones on the beach. From chapter 9, I know about your magazines, he said. Mom told you? No, I found them this weekend. I knew Mom was upset about something, and then I saw the bag sitting on her bed. Dude, I thought you had porn or something in there, so I took a peek. Is this sexually graphic content? Maybe not, but it is sexual content and definitely has the potential to lead to graphic sexual content. Every child knows how to search the internet for terms and words they do not understand. If a child searches the words dirty magazine or porn, he or she will come in contact with pornography. The article in the Leader was very one-sided and left out a lot of details. And I hope that you all see now, I hope that you all would agree with me that pornography has no place in children's literature.
Thank you, Robin. But still, we ask that you try to limit. Next on this side, please.
This is a question for the board. Even by secular standards, movies have ratings. And the Motion Picture Association, I don't know how they come up with it, but they deem that there are certain things that are not appropriate for G-rated, PG, or even PG-13 movies. And so I don't know if there's a system y'all could appeal to. I don't know if y'all could, well, it really shouldn't be y'all, because y'all are not of one accord on this, but, or that some sort of framework by which children's, young adults, and adult movies and books should be graded by. So, is that something y'all could reference or research or look into? That's my question.
Okay, before we answer, I'm going to turn to Mr. Parish. But we have two people in the back, one there and one there.
Howdy. So my concern is really, my concern is with the process. I agree with the librarians who spoke at the beginning on the inadvisability of sequestering some material. But the process seemed to be, there were a few emails. There was some meeting of some of the board members, and then a decision to move things out of the general circulation, out of where they have been. And I guess I'm concerned because does that mean that if I and a dozen or 24 or 50 of my friends send emails, then we can shape what is on the floor? I don't think you want that sort of situation where my viewpoint starts to declare what you all can see on the floor and what you have to go somewhere and ask for. If that isn't what would happen, if the view is like, no, we wouldn't do that for if I made some outlandish statement, well, then you're engaging in viewpoint discrimination, and you can't do that as a governmental body. You can't have viewpoint discrimination. That's unconstitutional. So I guess I feel like there needs to be a far better process for handling something like this, and it can't simply be that a few people email or write a letter, and then there's something that happens because of that. If this board wants to do that sort of thing, I think the notice has to go up. People have to know what's on the table, and then maybe you can have some sort of vote on it. But what appears to me to have happened really seems to me an awful, awful process.
Thank you. Young lady in the back.
Hi, my name is Erin Gleason, and this might just be a specific personal question for Ms. McCain. As I understand it, these questionable books that Robin brought up, Rick and George, as I understand it, those were the books that were face front cover displayed. And as I also read that those were highlighted for ages 8 through 12. And the children's section has kids much younger than 8 walking through. And maybe this is a parenting question as to what I can expect as a parent coming into a public library. So, Ms. McCain, please tell me yes or no. Should I be able to allow my 5 or 6-year-old to walk through and say, this book looks interesting, I'd like to look at it? Or do you think this is in the children's section, this is not the library as a whole? So, would you request that I, as a parent, stick right by my 6-year-old and go, before you open this cover, I need to read it first? Or should I be able to have a general expectation that the books displayed front and center should be the trailer, the G version, the suitable for all audiences book, that if my child walks by and goes, this is interesting, let me open it up, they're not going to see words like dirty magazine and porn and other such things that have been listed. That is a sincere question that if you tell me it is my job to walk next to my 6-year-old as we are spending time in the children's section of the public library, I am happy to do so. That is my concern, that should I have the flexibility to say, my kid can look at something that he finds interesting, and then when we get home and we're reading through it, I don't want, then I would feel that yes, if we start reading a book and I determine it to be against something my child is ready for, against values that my family holds, then it is of course my job to close the book. But while we're here for the 30 minutes that we spend, the books that are put front and center, that's why they're put front and center, is because that entices the child to pick them up. Should I be standing next to my 6-year-old the whole time we're here to make sure he doesn't pick up something that says porn?
Maybe take one other before, I think the young lady in front of you, or 2 more, so we will come back to them to take answer that. Young lady, sitting.
Okay. First off, I'm Mary the Dream, and I want to say that she makes some good points. I like what she had to say. What I was going to say is I thought that the books being put where they need to be asked or requested is a win-win for everybody in the community. It doesn't have to be a negative thing where you ask for it. For the children, they can be told that these books are put away because they're special. Something like that. So it's a positive thing for children. If you want your child to see these kind of books presented in a way that they see that it is a positive thing. I had 7 kids in less than 11 years. If I brought them all in here, I could not sit with each one of them as they were going through the books. So there'd be some of them that would be looking through books that I might find inappropriate. There's no way I could have gauged that with each one of them all the time. I'd like to have known that if I brought my children into this library, which I dearly love this library, Vivian knows I love this library. I'm a friend of the library president. But I want my children, my grandchildren and great-grandchildren to be safe here. I don't want to have to worry about explaining situations that they are too. I want my children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren to have childhoods. Sex should not be a part of their childhoods. We shouldn't have to worry about it. The books ought to be ones that are uplifting and fun and entertaining, not where we have to worry. Thank you.
Thank you, the young lady.
I have two testimonies, so the first that I will read is from Savannah Wood. I realized I was queer when I was 8 years old. I grew up in LPL. I remember when the building was in Albertsons and you could get free ice cream samples and being so mad that the library got rid of the ice cream. I was a perfectly normal kid who went to the library a lot. I also liked girls and boys. I was too ashamed to tell anyone or talk about it, but I've known since I was 8 years old and had my first crush on a girl at school. If I had LGBTQ resources when I was a child, I would have been a happier person. In 2015, I attempted to commit suicide. Part of the reason I did this was because I felt like I was hiding a huge part of myself from my family. I already had a strained relationship with them because I was so different, and I thought they would never accept me. I had so much shame and so much fear, and I knew when I was 8 years old. So you can keep the material about LGBTQ topics away from your own kids, if that's what you believe, but it will never change the fact that they are and have always been LGBTQ children. We've just created a society that makes children afraid to tell people. We take these innocent little kids and wrap them up in shame and self-hatred and otherness and expect them to grow up and be well-adjusted. By separating the LGBTQ material from children, the rest of the children, material for children from the rest of the children's books, you are directly telling LGBTQ children that they are other, that they don't belong with everyone else, that they are bad. The library will be complicit in a long-lasting psychological trauma that stems from early childhood internalized homophobia. The library will be complicit if they bend to the will of the vocal minority of parents who want to have controversial material separated instead of being parents and doing their job in monitoring their children's media consumption. If you don't want your child reading something, don't let them read it or check it out, but you do not have that right to make choices for other people's children. Imagine being 8 years old and hating yourself because people tell you that something you cannot change about yourself is wrong and evil. Imagine hating yourself so much that you develop an eating disorder at 11 years old because you feel so unable to control your feelings for other girls that you cling desperately to something you can control. So you stop eating or you force yourself to eat so much that it physically hurts and then quietly go to the bathroom and turn on the vent and make yourself throw up. Imagine going through puberty and hearing friends talk about boys and never being able to talk about all the people you have crushes on. Then imagine them gossiping about a girl they think is a lesbian and how disgusting it is and how they never want to be around her. Imagine going home and cutting yourself for the first time. Imagine being in high school. Imagine dating your best friend who is a boy so you can keep from finding out your secret. Imagine hating your small-minded high school so much that you graduate a year early to escape. Imagine being in college. Imagine finally coming out to people and being accepted. Imagine being loved. Imagine the first time you kiss a girl and feeling right. Imagine that half of yourself has been locked away is finally free. Imagine going home for break and hearing homophobic remarks from family and friends. Imagine going back to school and dating a man who treats you like garbage and makes comments about lesbians. Imagine being emotionally abused for 2 years. Imagine trying to take your own life at 20 years old. I knew I was different when I was 8 years old. and the world kept telling me that I was bad, broken, evil, predatory. Now imagine a world where an 8-year-old who thinks they may be LGBTQ can ask a librarian for a book with a kid like them in it. Imagine the smile on the children's face when they realize that being different is not the same thing as being wrong. Imagine feeling accepted and loved and safe.
Would you please give her a spot to and down to 10, if you don't mind? Have a few other people trying to get in. We thank you for your concern.
I'll read the rest of the books.
This young lady.
We can make that world, and it starts by making small choices. You can't hear me? Are you kidding? We can make that world, and it starts by making small choices like these. The following statistics come from the Trevor Project, a leading national organization providing crisis intervention and suicide prevention services to lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning LGBTQ young people under 25. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among young people ages 10 to 24. LGBT youth seriously contemplate suicide at almost 3 times the rate of homosexual youth. LGBT youth are almost 5 times as likely to have attempted suicide compared to heterosexual youth. Of all the suicide attempts made by youth, LGBT youth suicide attempts were almost 5 times as likely to require medical treatment than those of heterosexual youth. Suicide attempts by LGBT youth and questioning youth are 4 to 6 times more likely to result in injury, poisoning, or overdose that requires treatment from a doctor or nurse compared to their straight peers. In a national study, 40% of transgender adults report having made a suicide attempt. 92% of these individuals reported having attempted suicide before the age of 25. LGBT youth who come from highly rejecting families are 8.4 times as likely to have attempted suicide as LGBT peers who reported no or low levels of family rejection. 1 out of 6 students nationwide, grades 9 through 12, seriously considered suicide in the past year. Each episode of LGBT victimization, such as physical or verbal harassment or abuse, increases the likelihood of self-harming behavior by 2.5 times on average. Members of the board, I need you to understand, you did not just break our hearts with your ham-fisted actions. You stabbed us in the back. Members of the board, when you took those books from the shelves and hid them behind the desk, you looked us in the eyes and decided a dead child is better than a queer one. Members of the board, you may not have felt the sting on your own hands, but we felt the slap on our cheeks when you decided that we are a shameful other that need to be hidden away from the public. Members of the board, if the very idea of me standing here doing something as innocent as holding my wife's hand fills you with disgust, but my mother and father standing here doing the same does not, I implore you to look within your own souls, because that disgust is not proof that my character is flawed. Members of the board, I leave you with this. Judy Blume, American author of Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, received the American Library Association Margaret A. Edwards Award for her contribution to young adult literature and recognized by the Library of Congress as a living legend once said, librarians save lives. By handing the right book at the right time to a kid in need. By hiding these books away and making them only available by parent permission, you are effectively cutting the librarians off at the wrists
and having the audacity to ask why there is blood on your hands. Members of the board, thank you for letting me address you today.
Thank you. My name's Scott. I am a parent. I brought my daughter here since she was 4 years old. It's a great library. I'm also a teacher. I will say this, I teach art, which means I deal with a group of students who are much more open. And by that I mean we deal with their sexuality. I am someone that they can come and talk with. I would like to lower the temperature in this room right now. Okay, I think we're kind of getting off track. What Robin has to say is very true. What you were saying in terms of the grading as far as films is very true. If the choice is only between absolute censorship or having every book out on the shelf, we need to have every book out on the shelf. There is no choice there. There's no, I mean, you cannot censor anything. Okay, my daughter, when she was younger, and we would come here to the kids section, she would pick up books, we'd read it. There was stuff which she did not understand. If she asked me questions about them, I answered them as I would a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old. I don't feel the need to go into getting real explicit. Okay, the Rick and George books, I was looking them up. They are not picture books, they are storybooks. My one suggestion, and this comes from talking with my daughter, it's sort of like, and I don't know how we do the judging here, whether we go off Library of Congress in terms of age groups. It seems to me that the easy remedy to this is that maybe what we need to do, we have a kids section, we have a teen section. I don't know where these fit in terms of being 8 to 12. In terms of if you're reading them and understanding them completely, it doesn't really matter what age you are. The parent is the one who is responsible. There's no problem at all with that. I agree with it completely. But you cannot censor books. The only thing that I might suggest is that we reconsider where these things are placed. That would really be my only concern and my only question in terms of the board, which is going to be how it's decided in terms of where these are. I can relate it maybe to talking about movies. When we come in and get movies, I look at them and I look at the rating. And there are some things I don't want my 16-year-old daughter to be seeing, which is no big deal. We do the same thing with books. Kids' books, for the most part, are picture books. They're great. We learn stuff. I have a lot of friends who are homosexual or in that relationship. I have absolutely no problem at all with that. My question, again, was keep the temperature down, is solely going to be, we're dealing with the idea of censorship. So let's keep that in mind, all right?
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So now, recognize, I'll take a hand over here, and then this one.
I appreciate your perspective, and as a parent, as a grandparent, as a member of the community, my concern is that we not draw this one end of the spectrum or the other. It's a juxtaposition where no one wins, or there are winners and losers. Rather, that we all have a responsibility to our community and to one another. Lucius is a financial advisor. He has a fiduciary responsibility to those who he advises and manages money for. I, as a parent and grandparent, and I have guardianship legally connected to a grandson who is a single who has a single parent, until recently, a single parent family. That guardianship, that fiduciary responsibility means that I have responsibility for the good of someone else. And for that reason, I expect the responsibility, in the same sense, for the library to take, whether you're a librarian or on the library board, to take a guardianship or fiduciary responsibility in hand. And that includes things that are appropriate for an age. And there's nothing wrong with that any more than there is to have a grading of movies or whatever. To say these things are not appropriate to be seen. It is a responsibility of the parent as well. But we all hold those responsibilities. And my concern is that if we abdicate those responsibilities to someone else, or if we fail to practice them as a librarian or a library board perhaps sets criteria, we lose, and you will lose patrons, and you will lose supporters who go to the polls. Just a reality. And as you lose patrons and supporters, you lose your effectiveness as a public entity. I'm not in favor of censorship, but of practicing a fiduciary responsibility. And that includes grading things and appropriately making them available. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'd like to address some of the parents who had concerns.
Can't hear you.
I'd like to address some of the parents who had concerns. Almost all of you probably have a smartphone, and if you see a book title, you can very easily Google it. You can go on Goodreads, you can see all kinds of information about it. What you might find to be controversial in the book, and very easily determine for yourself if you think that book is appropriate for your child. I was a very voracious reader as a kid, and I know that children can be very hard to keep up with, but it's not that hard to just Google something and be like, oh yeah, I guess this is appropriate for a kid, or oh no, but you can make that decision for yourself or your kids as a parent.
And then y'all said you had one more.
Is that me?
Yes, you, sir.
Okay, thanks. Hey everybody, I'm a parent, and I know it's a challenge, a lot of work involved. So I understand that it's an individual decision that we all have to make. One of the resources that I use, just based on a couple of the comments that were made, is an app or website called Common Sense Media. And Common Sense Media is great because I can type in the name of a movie, a book, a video game, and it will give me a age rating and even some information on content. And that can help me because I have some things that maybe I'm more particular about than others, right? So for instance, I looked up Rick on here, and it's apparently a really good book. It's got 5 stars. It's marked here for 9 or older. But the thing that's really great is that below that, it says, do you want more information? And it says, do you want to know about the educational value? If sex is involved, or something like this, and I can click on it, and then it gives me a brief description of it. And it becomes very helpful as a parent trying to raise my child. At the same time, the library serves a community, which is a collective good. It's all of us. And it becomes much more diverse at that point. So I use tools to help me be the best parent I can be for my child, and that's an individual thing. And I hope the library succeeds at helping our community be a diverse and rich place to live. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, y'all. So I was actually going to say what you just said about Common Sense Media. I worked in a library in high school, and my high school ranged from 4th to 12th grade. So we use Common Sense Media to determine the books we buy. So it addresses, as for y'all, it addresses whether it uses alcohol and drugs, whether or not there's sex and stuff involved. So what my message is, I guess, is as a gay man, as somebody who grew up with depression and anger and having to deal with this, having LGBTQ books on the shelf will bring positivity to these children who are struggling. You need them on the shelf, period. The library is a government organization, therefore we serve all, no matter the race, the religion, or the sexuality and gender of them. Okay, so they have sex in George and Rick. I read both of them. I think y'all are taking them and embellishing it a little bit from the meaning that's going on. So, with that being said, so if you want to find out and talk to your kids about this, you need to prepare yourself as a parent and say, hey, okay, let's talk about sex. You should be prepared as a parent that you are going to have uncomfortable situations and you will have to face them. So that's all I'm saying is your child, whether or not they're gay, straight, whatever, you have to be prepared for those situations and to have those conversations. And those conversations are what is going to help them grow and to learn. So that's all I'm asking is to just be a little more open-minded in this situation. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is David Griffin. Can y'all hear me all right?
Good stuff, good stuff.
All right. So my name is David. I'm a native of Ruston. Been born here, raised here, and go to school here at Tech now. I guess what I'd like to say is that, how should I phrase this?
Good.
I'd like to address some of the concerns raised by Ms. Ms. Smith. She raised some concerns about sexual content, or called porn and dirty magazines being a part of it. And that's valid. It's valid. It's a valid concern. I find that to be a valid concern as a parent. I think what we do not discuss is the reality of living in an LGBT community. How the LGBT are oppressed, shunned, forced into silence about how they feel. And so they feel like they have to turn to certain materials that may be seen unsavory for some, but are revealing and informational to others about who they really are. That is a reality of living in the LGBT community. That is the truth, and the truth isn't pretty. Now, we as a community, I believe, can work to change that truth, to make it so that LGBT kids, teens, adults don't have to turn to such materials in order to find out about themselves, that they can trust in their communities, that they can trust in their schools, that they can trust in the people around them to teach them and to love them and to accept them for who they are, so that we can forge new stories of LGBT life that doesn't have to include things like porn or dirty magazines. But the way to do that, I find, is to normalize it. Normalization among people. Folks, I'm going to be quite honest here. The LGBT community is here. It is here in Ruston. I've met them as students from a young age, in high school, in college, and you know what I found? They're pretty like us. They're funny. They're smart. I can hang out with them. I don't have to worry about them. They're just regular people, regular Americans, just like us. And the sooner that we start treating LGBT people as regular Americans, normalizing them within our communities at all ages, then we can forge new stories, forge new LGBT stories that don't have to include things that may be unsavory to some. But until then, I feel that we have to have this kind of material on the shelves so that we can normalize it and get to a point where we can have this discussion, where we can have LGBT material that perhaps doesn't offend some. Now, is it perfect? No. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that those books don't cater to the specific sensibilities that you may have. But as in their purpose of normalizing and creating a community where we don't have to have things like that, I think they're important. And think they should stay on the shelf. Thank you.
Thank you. Two final ones, one here and one here.
Josh Shirley, I'm a parent, and I'm here to talk about the budget. Sorry, I do like seeing the rice passion, I do like seeing the back and forth. That is fantastic. But I moved to Ruston in '99 to go to school at Tech for theater. And if you work in the theater, you work in the theater department, you work for a theater company, one of the things you learn is to budget very, very tightly. And I get if you don't spend a budget, there is a fear that you will be reduced next year. And some of the concerns that Chris brought up, I think, need to really be highlighted. And it's not about the funds going up, it's about the line items that these funds are going to. Because I grew up in Minden, and Minden has a fantastic library. I was there all the time. But to see a landscaping budget go from $55,000 up to 300% on the next budget is disheartening, and it's concerning. When there are other things that those funds could go to in the library to help the community. So I hope everybody is aware of that. Because it is sad to see that the funding didn't pass for the library, and I can get why it didn't pass. And I think with better budgeting, I think being more open with the public about decisions for books can go a long way to help the library to get that funding that it can use and need to help everybody in the community. For some levity, one last thing, one of my favorite Mitch Hedberg jokes is, every book's a children's book if the kid can read. So where you put it at doesn't really matter. So that's all I want to do is bring another highlight to the budget, where those funds are going, what those funds could be doing other than if we're going to raise it 300% for landscaping, maybe we're getting a fountain, I don't know. That would be exciting, but I think there needs to be more clarity when it comes to the budget and what those funds are going to, because I do understand when you are getting taxes, you have to spend that money that you're going to get, or you may fear it being reduced next year. I would just like to see better accountability to the line items that are being budgeted for.
Thank you, Josh. And the last comment we're going to take is a person over here.
My name is Edith Hill, and the first thing I want to say is I had a conversation with a friend of mine who's in their 60s and is gay. We talked about this children's books in the library, and he said to me, I wish my library when I was 8 years old had books like that that could have helped me through figuring out who I was, because I couldn't talk to many people. And the second thing I want to say is I have two daughters who are grown, and we lived in a small town in Michigan when they were little, a town that was known to be sort of a gay resort, so that we encountered people who were gay and lesbian all the time. And when they were probably 4 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, we were driving down the road, and one of my daughters said, Mom, have you ever noticed that at that house there's only ever men, and sometimes they're holding hands? Now I have to say, at that point, I was not prepared to talk to them. But the time and the situation allowed me to have a good conversation. Because every community in this country is diverse. We have all kinds of people. And I'll tell you that there are gays and transgender, queer, in every one of our churches, I suspect. But they're hiding. They can't feel comfortable enough to come out and be who they truly are. And so the more that we can help our community, our children in particular, but our community understand each other, the better off Ruston and Lincoln Parish will be.
Okay, I just want to say we have a great library and we have a great community, obviously a very diverse community. We have conservative Christians, and we have members of the LGBTQ community, and we have to all figure out how to live with each other. I think that Miss Robin didn't know what kind of controversy she was going to start when she made a pretty reasonable request to move some books that talked about porn and masturbation into a different section. I still think that request is reasonable. I think what's not reasonable is kind of the backlash against people who hold to traditional beliefs about Christian sexuality. And I think the community needs to know that we're not motivated by hate. We don't want anybody to die. We're not motivated by ignorance. And I've done a lot of thinking and reading about these things, and I'm happy to buy anybody in this room coffee and talk about them. So thank you, board. You have a very tough road trying to find a compromise in this community, but it's a wonderful community, and we really appreciate your efforts.
Thank you so very much. With that, I'm going to ask to return both to David Gillette and Judy McCain. David, you want to say something to Mr. Helping?
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the library. My name is David Gillette. I'm Vice President of the board, and I'll be rotating off shortly, so I don't know exactly when, but this is certainly a send-off, I think. We do so much appreciate your coming. In fact, the focus group that we had here Sunday afternoon was such a marvelous thing to participate in that I have already encouraged Dr. Clark to set up some focus groups for the future. And then to Lucius and all of the ones that mentioned the budget, that's one area we need to have a focus group. And we will be doing that in the future. And we will be asking you to participate. And we hope we have groups like this that will come in and say, I think this is a wonderful idea, or I do not think this is necessary. Like you were saying, the landscaping might be too big and we need to put more money into books or whatever. And we really need your ideas. We need your support. And so I just wanted to thank each of you for coming out this evening and voicing your opinions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Even I think someone, I don't know, the young lady is still here.
You asked me a question of, can you repeat your question for me? She left.
She was asking.
Okay, she left. She asked the question that, I can't remember exactly how she worded it.
Does she have the expectation to walk into the children's department and need to have her child right there and have to be able to look at any book that they pick up off the shelf?
Okay.
Specifically the ones facing out.
Okay.
That are
Okay, well,
specifically
let me just say that.
Display.
Okay, first of all, let me tell you that George and Rick were not put on the shelf for display by library staff. Those were still on the shelf, but they were not put out for display. Yes, I think that a parent should stay with their child if they are concerned about what they pick up. I don't think it is my job to decide what your child reads, but I think I need to be providing, as a public librarian, I believe that I need to be providing materials for every person every person in the public that is going to come through our doors. That can be the full gamut of people. And I think that even when my child was 15 years old, I still walked with him to the video section and said, you know, which ones are you taking today? Because even then, you know, I would still tell him, no, you can't have that one today. He probably did it behind my back, just as some of your kids are going to do things behind your back. But it is not my job to decide that for you. It is my job to provide access to materials of all kinds for all people. We are the public library. We serve the entire public of Lincoln Parish, and that includes every kind of person.
Ms. McCain touched on the point that we have on the books in the library a policy that talks about just that. You are parents, you're responsible for your kid, the selection and everything else that goes along with it. May I ask if Debbie Howler, I've asked her to take a portion of that and to be able to share with you. And you will see, maybe if we had stuck with this, we wouldn't be here today. Beyond.
Well, we needed to do this. As painful as it has been, thank you so much for coming on. This has been great. Now, we're in the living room. I gotta be able to talk though. Louder. All right, hang on. We'll take these off too. Okay, now, can you hear me?
I can hear you back.
Okay, thank you. Let me know if you cannot. Okay, I'm just gonna follow what David said. This is tremendous. Who would have thought? This is the second meeting we've had. No ugliness, no animosity. We're here together in the Lincoln Parish living room, the event center, right? So this is where we can come together for discourse, talk about our differences, talk about uncomfortable things in a safe place. We're going to continue this forever. We should have been doing it before now. A lot more than we have. Can you hear me back there?
I can.
Okay, I'm going to give you some background policies that are found on the brand new website. So you would go to myLPL.org, scroll to the very, very, very bottom, and it says policies. And I'm going to read you the Louisiana Library Association policy on censorship in general, and then the Lincoln Parish Library policy on censorship. Before I do that, I'm not asking, this is not mea culpa, asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for your grace. Let me explain just as a member of the board, how this kind of happened, and I'm just going to make it real quick, but we received a barrage of copied and pasted emails and text emails from concerned Christian homeschooling group, Christian parent groups, concerned about 2 books, and we had never read them, we didn't know a thing about them, and it was really like a shock, and we sort of we kind of caught flat-footed, and we said, okay, well, what do we do? Well, first of all, let's just do this. Let's just keep them in the Children's Center, but put them in the parenting section for now. We hadn't read the books, never laid eyes, I'd never heard of them. And before we could even read them, we got another drove of letters saying, also, we'd like you to remove the following. How many was it? 7 books, 7 more books. We need to take those out. So at this point, we were like, whoa, what is going on? So we got the books, the 7 books, the George and other book. We had to see what we were talking about. So the board read the books, and then we made our decision, and we're going to vote tonight. But we didn't know what we were dealing with, okay? So I'm going to read these. I'm not going to comment on them. Just listen to what they say, and then we're going to have some other things to talk about. But thank you for your grace. Thank you for, I want to say this too. I personally, and everybody here on the board, probably got like 200 emails from all over the world. I got one from Hawaii. I was like, okay, and then he was from Ruston. But anyway, some of them were furious, and some of them were hateful. Yours have not been. I'm not kidding. All the local ones, people know us. They know us to be fair people. We're not some kind of racist, crazy bigots or anything. But it was like confusion more than upset. You know, it wasn't like they trusted us, but they didn't know what was going on. And so I'm telling you, it wasn't like we're trying to ban a bunch of books. No, we were just trying to educate ourselves. Okay? So let me read you
I have one
yes.
question about what you're reading. Does that include the labeling system and rating systems that are on the ALA website? Because several people discuss the rating system, and that honestly goes against everything librarians agree with.
I don't know anything about that.
And I would encourage the board and other folks that feel that a rating system would be correct to go to that website and research it, or find me on Facebook. I'm Claire Roan. I'd be happy to hear from you and explain why.
Oh, okay. I see what you're talking. You're talking about what people refer to like movies.
Yes, because that's not a thing that books.
All right. Well, look. So everybody, this is just to educate us together. This is the Louisiana Library Association, Louisiana LLA, Louisiana Library Association statement on censorship. They put this out after this happened in Lincoln Parish. I mean, it had been in place, but they felt the need to stress this, okay? The LLA Code of Ethics adopted by the membership in 1981 and located in the LLL manual makes clear our stance. Librarians must resist all efforts by groups or individuals to censor library materials. The American Library Association now we're at ALA. American Library Association also condemns censorship and clearly states through the Library Bill of Rights that restricting access to library materials is a form of censorship, stating that attempts to restrict access to library materials violate the basic tenets of the Library Bill of Rights. Censorship always has been and always will be antithetical to librarianship. We stand with our colleagues and library users in fighting censorship in all its forms in Louisiana libraries. Okay, that's the Louisiana Library Statement. Now this is the Lincoln Parish Library Statement, and one little part of it is on your child safety policy sheet. The Lincoln Parish Library regards censorship as a purely individual matter and holds that while anyone is free to personally reject materials that they may consider offensive, one cannot exercise this right of censorship to restrict the freedom of others. Only parents and guardians have the right and responsibility to guide and direct the reading, listening, and viewing choices of their own minor children. The library does not stand in the place of parents. The library strives to present a collection that is diverse and inclusive in order to provide materials to patrons of all ages, backgrounds, and opinions. The collection taken as a whole will represent as many viewpoints as possible. The existence of a particular viewpoint in the collection is an expression of the library's policy of intellectual freedom, not an endorsement of that particular point of view. No material will be excluded because of the race, nationality, religion, gender, sexual orientation, political, or social views of the author. Okay? And then there's a material selection policy for Lincoln Parish, and I want to read this to you real quick. It's not very long, but these books are not just showing up. They are curated, they are selected and bought for our community, for our library. Okay? The following policy governs all additions to the library collections regardless of format, type of material, or source. Selections will be made solely on the merits of the materials in relation to the building of the total collection and to serving the interests and needs of the citizens of Lincoln Parish, and not on the basis of anticipated approval or disapproval. The Lincoln Parish Library regards censorship as a purely individual matter and holds that while anyone is free to personally reject materials that they may not consider offensive, one cannot exercise this right of censorship to restrict the freedom of others. And then it's only parents and guardians, and that's on your other sheet, so I'll skip down. The library strives to present a collection that is diverse and inclusive in order to provide materials to patrons of all ages, backgrounds, and opinions. The collection taken as a whole will represent as many viewpoints as possible. The existence of a particular viewpoint in the collection is an expression of the library's policy of intellectual freedom, not an endorsement of that particular point of view. No material will be excluded because of the race, nationality, religion, gender, sexual orientation, political, or social views of the author. Okay, so does anybody have any questions? That's just to give you some background on our stance in Louisiana, in America, and in Lincoln. Thanks.
Thank you.
We want to thank you so much for coming out and participating with us. And I think as Dr. Galena said with Mr. Lucius, this is going to be the beginning of what we need and term as a necessary thing, to have the kinds of forums that we're having so that we can hear you and you can hear us. We may not always agree with the same kinds of ideas and thoughts, but at least they should be out there, and we still live in America where we can express our ideas and our views. What I'd like to do is to say that we have discussed this among ourselves. I was prepared to do a whole lot of litany of things to do tonight, but I'm not going to do that. I was going to tell you how we got here, what did this and did that. I don't think we need to do all of that. I think the thing that you came to hear us say and do is that all of the books recommended should be remaining on the shelves, and we should also go back and look at that policy that we already have in our books to be enforced about in terms of looking at the library unattended children policy. Would you be in agreement with that? And I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for you not cutting everybody down like we were chopped meat, okay? Because this is a subject in which we do need to be able to. And like I said, we may not always agree, but let us be able to express our views. And it's with that, I'm gonna go back and put it in the form of a recommended motion so the board members can vote on that.
I'll make the motion that we do the two things that you said, which is leave these questionable books on the shelves, and that we also look at the attendance policy of the children.
May I have a second? Okay, it's been moved and properly second that we will remain with the books on the shelves. We'll look at the children's unattended policy. All in favor? Aye. Opposes?
I'm going to abstain.
Abstain, one abstention. All right, thank you very much. Motion carried. Right now, longer. We're going to take about a 5-minute break if you don't mind, and then we'll come back and we'll take care of the rest of our. And you're welcome to come back to be a part of that as well.
It's not going to be as fun.
Okay, we're going to pass because the minutes are not included in this section. Somebody else want to do? Okay. Well, we don't have any minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry, the minutes are not in here. They're in Jeremy's computer and I can't get them out. Oh, okay.
We'll take it over the next meeting.
Yeah, I'll bring those to the next meeting.
Okay. Do we have any unfinished business? None? Okay, well, let's move down to the new business. First of all, I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome aboard Amy Miller, who is the person who's coming on board, President Jay O'Neill. We welcome you and we hope that you will work with us in terms of trying to give to the citizens of Lincoln Parish all that they need and all that they want. And by the same token, I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you to Dr. David Gillette, who in turn has worked for 15 years. As a very dedicated member of this board, giving of his time, energy, talents.
Thank you, Dr. Clark, and I've really enjoyed my tenure here, and I'll miss it in a way, but there'll be other things I'm sure my life will be filled up with. But I wish you all luck, success in the library, and it's part of us, and we gotta make it work.
Thank you very much. And you can come and visit us anytime, David. You're welcome.
I'll get a comment thing and come and talk.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, we've already taken care of the recommendation of the policy of placing the selection. Just a little discussion about the library and tax vote. We know it did not pass. We know that there are some things that will be impacted by that non-passage. Vivian, I just want you to say one or two things about it. We've been working on some stuff too, because we've had the opportunity to say, what if the tax does not pass? So we have been kind of giving some thought to it. It will come up again, and by that time we can be prepared again. Vivian, you're on.
I am.
Yeah, just tell us about the tax. Well, maybe we should even wait down to get to the section we're going to do the budget.
Budget, yeah.
Okay, because a little of that is tied in with that.
Yeah.
Which is next, Vivian.
Well, I looked at our budget very carefully and made several cuts. It looks really strange when you don't see any income there.
Yeah.
If you look at that. $100,000 to $107,000 income or revenue is not going to sustain this library, that's for certain. But thankfully, we do have a little bit of money in our reserve fund, and it will take us through this year. The cuts that I made, I wanted to wait until the very end before I started cutting salaries. I hate the thought of getting rid of staff, so I didn't cut any staff as of now. The one thing that you do see there is the event center coordinator I took out of salaries, and I took the 2 part-time people we were planning to hire for this year out of wages. So that's the changes there in the personnel services. You'll see some materials differences. If you look on the far right, that number is the amount of that I cut from each of those line items. I cut materials and e-materials, cut periodicals. I didn't put the 5,000, that was 5,000 that came out there. And the only positive on there is $2,500 I added to the printing and binding, because I know that if the event center does open back up this year, we will need to purchase ads for the newspaper, so I added some in that line for purchasing ads. I cut programming by $20,000, the circulation supplies, I cut that some. I'm sorry, I did not cut circulation supplies because the COVID janitorial supplies and all those cleaning supplies are coming out of that, and they really have eaten up circulation supplies. So that's why I didn't cut that at all there.
And Vivian, is that
Yes, sir.
as we, if we open back up this area and we have to do additional cleaning as a result of whatever regulations, is that where you're saying that?
Yes, that's where that would, some of that would come from that line. And some would also come from the buildings and grounds maintenance as well, depending on what it is exactly. Since we're cutting materials, we would cut materials processing fees as well. You know, the buildings and grounds maintenance, the maintenance of equipment and the furniture and fixtures that Mr. McGee and Mr. Carragher were talking about that was so great, that was because of the plans we had with extra monies coming in from the tax that we didn't get. So that's why those were cut so drastically there. No, I would never spend $150,000 on landscaping. I think you all know that right up front. And I did cut the travel and training. I did not cut that completely out because I think that we need to continue training our staff no matter what we do. And also there, the tax deduction for retirement systems, that is a percentage. That's always a percentage of the ad valorem tax. So since we don't get any ad valorem tax this year, that is zero. So you can see there that our fund balance then would be $926,000. If you take that bond shortfall out that Kate was talked about last night at the police jury, that leaves our fund balance at $696,000.
Now, you did say, Vivian, that we know that for the personal, it's called personnel services. Personal services.
Yes.
There would definitely have to be a larger percentage of salaries in terms of going back to that line item, right?
Right.
Because I know that there has been some discussions, and I must admit this, that we read the newspapers, online, most of the concern has been a lot about the South. So we're going to look at that too and take heed for what is being said. When we know that that's out there, we need to pay attention to it. Anything else that you would like to say, either of you from the board members for the budget?
Do any of these, take this off, do any of these changes affect the opening of the library to the public?
No, sir.
Okay, so we'll still be open at the same time,
Same
Sunday,
amount of
Saturday?
hours, no changes at all to that.
Because I was concerned that we would not be able to serve the public like we have been.
Vivian, I have a question about the $3 million that are in reserve. Isn't that a requirement that we have that?
The legislative auditor suggests and recommends that we have at least 1 to 1.5 years operating budget in reserve at all times.
So that's what we'll use this year.
We will be using up that one.
Right.
That's right.
Because I'm afraid a lot of the public thinks we had a slush fund of
They do.
But that's not the case. That's just fiscal responsibility to have that. Or
Everybody
requirement.
needs a rainy day fund.
Right.
We do at home, why wouldn't we in business?
Right.
Now, I understand that a lot of businesses, as one of our gentlemen said earlier, have used up their slush fund and they are in dire straits, and I understand that, but I don't think that we need to take ourselves into dire straits.
Right.
Without, on purpose.
Right.
Are there other questions for Vivian? If not, may I have a motion to accept this budget that has been revised? Because you're going to take it to the jury by Tuesday?
They vote on it Tuesday night, yes ma'am.
Okay, that's the next meeting that's coming up. May I have a motion to accept?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the budget that Vivian gave us.
Now, second. Been moved and properly second that we accept this budget and Vivian has presented for us. All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, is nay. Any abstention?
I'm going to say, and I'm not going to be difficult to do that all the time. This is my first day, so and I wasn't here when you made this budget originally, so I'm just trying to.
That's fine.
do
No
my
problem.
diligence here.
One record to show that. Okay, 1%. Okay. Thank you very much, Vivian. Next item on the agenda is our virus, our daily virus here. And we put this on the agenda, no, I did, because of what's happening in the world. And I had spoken to Vivian just a couple of days ago. And I said, I guess it's my own personal kind of experience. After going to everybody's doctor's office and everything else, and everybody making take off shoes, hat, and everything else, and put the thermometer to your head. So my question is, what are we doing for the procedures here in the library for our staff? I know when we first went under, we did have a process by which temperatures were taken, forms were filled out, and all those kinds of things. Where are we now?
We're exactly the same place. We are still taking exactly the same precautions. We check temperatures daily with every staff person who comes in, and every person who sits down at the table. As soon as they get up and walk away, staff walk over and clean that table, spray it down with disinfectant, and clean it. Every time they get up from the computer, we spray the computer down, we spray the workstation down, we spray the seat they sat in. Everything is still being done exactly the same. The only thing that has changed, And this was additional, is that we have put in the UV lighting with the air conditioning systems, so it is cleaning the air as we sit here. So that is the only other thing that has changed. We're still cleaning, disinfecting, bathrooms get cleaned every day, twice a day. Staff bathrooms get cleaned every time somebody goes in there. Each person who uses the bathroom has to clean it before they go out. And we have spray bottles in every room. We have hand sanitizers all over the place and spray Clorox wipes all over the place. Anybody can pick up one and use it all the time. We wear a mask. Nearly everybody wears a mask. I'm the one who is probably the most reluctant to wear a mask because it usually is hard for me to breathe once I get out in the building. But
And the books are being sanitized.
yes, those are still in quarantine for 3 days before we are shoving them back.
Do you take temperature of the people coming into the
No,
library?
ma'am, we don't take temperatures of those who enter the building. We do require, we ask them to put on a mask, though. And I've only had one person ever say no, not to wear a mask in the building.
I know that when you did this the first time, I sent you something like a little form for the staff coming in every day.
Yes, they
But
still
you-
sign that form.
You had a form like that already.
Yes, we have a form, and it's, all that temperature is on there every day, and the end of each week, staff have to sign that. We keep that in their medical file, and so we know exactly what their temperature was every day.
It's good that you have the staff taking the temperature every day. It's a wonderful thing to do.
But do they take it, somebody assign that every day? They take the temperature when they come
There's
in?
2 or 3 people that do that. There are 2 or 3 people that go do that.
Okay, we're just trying to make sure, because we don't want somebody coming back and saying, hey.
No, it depends on who's here that day as to who's taking it, but yes.
Okay. But you can sign off on the sheet.
Yeah, it's signed by the person who takes the temperature, and then the person who, their sheet is signed by the employee at the end of the week.
You may want to get some N95, they don't have your mask not restricted as much.
Right.
The N95.
You're saying you can breathe better.
You can breathe better. I have on an N95 now, and I can talk better, I can breathe better. And they're comfortable.
They are.
They are very.
There's more strength.
This is breathe better than
say
N95. Breathe better in this kind.
Okay. I didn't know that. Thank you for telling me. Maybe I better find him.
Thank you. I give you one.
Thank you. We have a comment from someone in the audience. Barbara?
Hi, my name is Marla Lewis, and you do all of that, but in the evening when they have cleaned the building, does anyone spray the areas?
Does anyone what?
Spray
the areas.
You know, they have a machine and it sprays the aerosol, the sanitizer.
Oh, the aerosol,
Yeah, and like what we do is, we have hand sanitizer and all of that, but the garbage is empty and blah, 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 and the last person goes through where the goods are, and it's an aerosol machine, and it sanitizes the rugs and everything else, the doorknobs and all of that. It's not really expensive.
Where do you get it? Medical supply or?
I've got the information at home, I can give it to Dr. Clark, but it sprays, you need to spray, because the doorknobs, the bathroom, all of that.
Well, we appreciate that, Ruby. That may be something we really consider looking into.
Purchase that.
Yeah.
Does that take the place of the air being clean?
Yeah, it's like a backpack, whoever the janitor or whoever.
They walk around.
And they walk around through the whole building, and it sprays aerosol, the sanitizer.
We have
Yeah, like
something
a
like
mist.
that at our gym, and it's like they used to spray from the Stevens.
Yeah, it's something like that.
That may be something you're looking into. That's why I want to make sure. And I guess too, Vivian, while I'm on this, since you brought that up, maybe she said the other business don't talk about it. Because we are closed that side, I still think it's necessary for us to have a professional cleaning as opposed to our own, what am I gonna say, own, yeah.
It's professional.
It has to be professional because we don't even want to put in jeopardy our own personnel. And they come back with their hazard suits and all that other stuff, which we don't have, they can't buy that. So I think it's best that we go back out and say, like we said in the papers, professional cleaning.
I like that idea, not that we're not doing a good job, but since we have shut down, we're saying we need to take precautions, and I'd really like to see that happen so that somebody doesn't say, well, we missed something and we could have done better.
But before we open, it's supposed to be professional clean. Before we open the meeting.
I think Friday, right, you did?
But the committee is planning on having a clean Friday. So we're saying the professional day is on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
There is or is not professional cleaning on Friday? I'm a little unclear here.
Yeah, well, I thought we were having something done this coming
Okay,
Friday.
well, we were having our own staff come in.
Oh, but you're gonna do that.
No, we don't want our staff.
Yeah.
We don't want them to be
I
able,
mean, there's probably a professional cleaning service that other parish properties have used. I feel like we could ask around, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
There's
It has to
something
be.
They probably have it in the building, so.
Clean the whole building.
Whatever y'all use.
Whatever y'all use too, Hayes,
That's
what's
what I
over
was
there?
thinking, yeah. I was thinking you might know.
You know, KK, what y'all use?
We have our janitorial staff with a sprayer that does it themselves. Our janitorial staff is perfectly fine, it's perfectly sanitary, it's also cost effective.
But you have not had,
Professional clean.
you have not had over there yet.
Yes, we have had COVID cases in parish buildings, and we have sprayed them properly. According to CDC guidelines, we have sprayed them under CDC guidelines, and it's fully compliant with the guidelines that were produced by the jury.
Okay, well, I guess part of it is.
It's your decision.
Some
You're
of
the
the
board.
others have said, we rather err on the side of caution.
That's right.
Err on the side of caution.
Okay.
Thank you, KJ. Okay, the next one on the item is the formation of the committees. This is coming in good with Lucius, is that the guy's name, Lucius?
Lucius McGee.
McGee.
Yes.
What thought and brought this up was the idea that we're larger than board. If we can do these smaller committees in terms of allowing 2 or 3 of us together to look at things, for example, personnel issues come about, some other kind of things, budgets, as well as acquisition. So that's why I said, let's see if we can look at it ourselves among ourselves. And right now, I'm not willing to recommend who would be on these committees, but I would ask you to let me come back to this a little bit later on, after I personally talk to you to find out if you would be willing to serve on one of these committees. Is that okay?
What would you have these committees doing?
Working with you?
It would be a sounding board, just additional ideas, like the community might call us with some ideas, or we could be helpers with a focus group that you might want to have to elicit ideas on, say, personnel or money issues, budget, whatever. We don't have that operational now, and I didn't really come up with this, but after thinking about 15 years, we've not really had the inner workings of committees within the board itself. And I think the thinking, Augusta, was that it would be a help to the director and also be an additional source of information as decisions were made.
Like, you don't maybe want more than one person, like one person from the board be on the committee.
That's what I'm talking about.
For personnel.
Yeah.
And one person be on the committee.
More than one, two is what I'm thinking about.
I have a quick question. Would these, if the committees meet, are these still going to be open meetings? I understand there wouldn't, if you're proposing 2 members on each committee, that wouldn't necessarily be a quorum, but is the policy going to be that there would be open meetings or not?
They don't have to be.
I mean, so is it gonna seem like we're trying to make less decisions in open meeting by forming these subset committees?
No, I think that the.
I'm not challenging you, I'm asking.
What I'm just saying, and how I envision it,
I understand.
is that those in the smaller groups will be able to also come back and say something to the other members on the committee, other members on the board.
I don't think we mean, I'm thinking out loud here, but I don't think we mean like a policy-making committee that would report to the full board with a recommendation and all of that. This would simply be an assigned person or persons that Vivian could go to and say, could you come by my office this afternoon? I need to talk about this or that. And so rather than just pick up the phone and call until you find somebody, it would be the one that has been assigned. And we would be hopeful that you would sign up for the committee that you felt most knowledgeable about or would want to contribute to. But it would not be a policy-making thing. It would just be a sounding board and an advisory type of thing. Do I have that right?
You have it exactly right.
That's what we had.
That's what it came out in mind.
And I'm just thinking about my perspective, in Lafayette, when I served on their board, we did utilize committees. It was very good for difficult decisions where we didn't know what to do yet. But we did not utilize standing committees for subject matters, like general subject matters such as
So
personnel
how were
or
they?
finance. Our committees were subject matter based committees. Hey, we have this issue that's been brought up about this, we need to form a committee of both. It would be a committee sometimes of board members or past board members, or maybe even bring in somebody from the community.
Yeah.
We put this committee together to put their heads together to try and solve this particular problem or this particular issue. So that's how we utilize committees.
So very
I think that your vision of what you're proposing is a little different. I wouldn't want to see, I think, standing committees on general subjects that are not because I don't think it would be effective, it might, but I don't want to give this impropriety kind of view that we're trying to make decisions about general topics without being an open meeting. That would be all.
Okay, it feels like to me.
More like focus group.
That's what I was thinking
Okay,
about.
and that's a different thing.
But if it's a standing committee, it's almost like you're taking my day-to-day jobs and dealing with it in a committee format, as opposed to what I do on a face-to-face, day-to-day situation.
Oh, they will be working with you, not against you, Vivian.
I didn't mean it that way,
Well, I'm
but
just saying,
I'm saying as a group, you're taking what I do and having a group do it.
Oh, I didn't.
That's how I feel about this.
I don't think it means doing it.
Those feelings are valid. Okay, let's say that. You know, those feelings are valid, and we can address them. Because I think she's just saying that that's the way it makes her feel. I can appreciate when
Because
sometimes you feel
I
like
know
you're.
that all the committees I've seen have been ad hoc committees that,
Like, we need to get together about a particular.
yeah, a particular
Right.
subject.
Well, one of them is definitely the budget.
Well,
You know,
yes, absolutely.
And with people, like, meet with people in the community, you know, not just the board, but like somebody like Lucius or that other guy, to say, to look at it with us.
Mhm.
And maybe we can do that, and then say, while we have these persons for the board, there may be another community member that we may want to add.
Right.
I don't have an objection to that. Oh, I'm sorry.
I would just strongly encourage you to follow open meeting laws.
Okay.
So you just make sure you do not have a quorum whatsoever at one time unless you call a meeting.
I don't even know.
We have never.
I'm just saying, that's all I'm trying to say. Just
We
make
have
sure
always,
that, yeah.
we have taken that
But
into consideration
we've-
always, when we have met,
Yeah.
that we are following that.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just making the comment.
Okay, thank you, we take that.
May
I'm
I
sorry,
speak real quick? Yeah. I mean, I don't know the exact legality issues here, but just going off of Kevin, I mean, the police jury has a lot of standing committees that do not constitute a quorum of the entire jury, but they still meet in open meetings before the regular jury meeting. Now, you may be recommending some other kind of thing that doesn't have the same purpose, but I would definitely check on the ability to do that way. And then secondly, I had a question real quick as well, just to specifically ask about the intention of the acquisitions committee, because I feel like that pertains a lot to the subject matter that brought so many people here today, and now most of them are not here, so I would just like throw that out there for them.
Well, David, we had talked about that a little bit before. We said, and maybe that's why we got that one in there. Because of what? What brought us here today?
Right, I put programming under there too. In my mind, acquisitions means the collection of books that we have, and also maybe programs and things that we do and all. And when I think of a committee, I think about somebody who's trying to understand, because we are the board. When this thing happened, I didn't know anything when this thing happened. I was not knowledgeable about the collection really I had to review the policy. And I think what we're saying is, as board members, we need to understand how everything operates. Because I don't know how anything operates at all. And I love books, so I thought, well, I'd like to be in the one where you order the books. That would be fun. But I'm not saying that I would be guiding anything or criticizing anything, but just to learn. Like, how do we do that? And what do we have? What do we get? Is that what a committee would do? I mean, I don't know. I just feel like we don't know anything about how the library operates.
And you know, that's a very good point.
I don't know anything.
Because they're saying that we don't even read our own manuals. The library manual, we're going to read library manuals, okay? As you can see, mine is in circles. I got little circles around them. So if we don't read them, we don't know what's in them. Which is another point that was brought up at the police jury meeting the other night. Because some of the things that are in that are not in our manuals. So we do need to get, as I think one board member said, in sync with each other. Because right now, we're out of sync.
And even saying board of control, that even shocked me when we said we're the board of control. I was just thought of us as like helpers of the library, but it's more. It's serious. It's an important position, so we need to take it seriously.
And I think the overall idea of this concept was partly what you're saying, because it would help us all know more about the running of what we are sitting here saying we're controlling. But I have no problem give in with your naming a group along with this board member that would like to participate. And when you want to talk about something, you could bring that advisory group in and y'all just kind of bounce ideas around. But I think the effort was to get a board member involved in something so you would know about programming, and Sandra might know about acquisitions a little more. And then when we had general discussions at the table, you could chime in and say, oh yeah, this is how that happened, or this is how this came about, or whatever.
Maybe more like a liaison for that area of the
Right.
library.
Well, we can call it whatever.
Yeah, and I'm not, I think that now I understand what the proposal was.
We just need to understand more about our library.
And
it's
I
not
know
to
we're
serve anybody. It's not that. It's to be helpful.
Well, yeah, but
It's just
Caleb
this.
had a good point. Like with the school board, we may have building and grounds that meets prior to the main meeting, but that's an officially sanctioned meeting. We have to have a quorum of the group that's there. You got to have a motion, a second. They got to have a report following, and we had no wish to have anything for
That was not
that.
the
It was just more of a information sharing thing.
Right.
And you're right, like the personnel committee met before, you know, the police jury. Can I recognize, I saw a hand back here.
I hope that I'm not out of line by speaking up, but if y'all are going to run committees, you're going to have to do it in an open forum where there are minutes and the public can attend. Because otherwise, the optics for you are going to be terrible. And it's going to look like you're doing backroom deals and handling a slush fund. And people will come unglued.
Thank you. No, we do not want people to think that we're underhanded. We have enough of that already.
We have enough bad optics right now. No more bad optics.
Committees go into the community and ask, like, if you're going to form a group of people,
Yes.
could you also have volunteers go out and take people from the community to put input in, so it's not just the board and staff, it's also people who are patrons.
Absolutely. Look, we don't have enough input from the community right now. We want more. We want it to be a partnership. This library could become a relic. It could become irrelevant unless we stay up with what our community wants. And that's the most important job that we have, is meeting with people and saying, what can we do? What do you want? What can we bring to this table?
And I think that's the best thing that could have happened. No, I'm going to go you first, Barbara, then I come back to you. I think that's one of the best things that happened out of this whole kerfuffle, as she would say. All right? That we had an opportunity to let people be heard, to let people hear us, to exchange views and ideas. Like I say, we ain't got to agree, but at least to put it out there so we know where you're coming from. That's
what I concur with him. You don't know what the library needs if you don't know what the community needs.
Exactly. It's their
So,
library.
if you, like you were talking about with your budget, I'm sure with all these accountants in this area, I don't know if you all got one, that someone would love to volunteer to help look at the budget and formulate ways that, we can eliminate this, we can add this. After-school programs, you may have some in place, but you may have some kids that may be autistic, and how can the library help them or whatever? You have to know what it is that the community needs in order for your library to be successful.
Absolutely.
Listen to people.
And I think that's what Chris, is that his name back there, was getting at when he made the comment.
Yeah.
You know?
Look, he was almost in tears, and I was mad at him on the computer because, on Facebook, because he was lagging so much back. But they're seriously hurting, and here we are with this giant budget. What can we do? You know, we need to really at least have some compassion and support. But I love to sit down with people like that and say, let's have some difficult conversations and get some things figured out.
And some people in the community might even donate, do fundraisers. You know, you all, Rustin love to do fundraisers. So, I work with St. Jude, and in 2 days we raised $68,000.
What?
Yes.
That's amazing.
So I'm just saying, it takes a village.
Right.
To not one person is out. So, yeah. Everybody will get together.
Okay, I promise I'm going to come here first, and I'll come here. No, you first.
I was just going to say that I can't speak for the whole organization, just myself, because we do try to keep a very consensus decision-making process, but I have a group of at least 15 core students at Tech, and we can reach more who would be willing to volunteer to do some of that community outreach. I mean, if it's going to take a village, you're going to need volunteers, and that means people stepping up to do it on their own volition. So, I can bring that as a motion to our next meeting, which probably won't be anything meaningful till after the holidays, but
We wish that you would.
we're a political organization, yes, but like our politics are very community minded. We just want to see everybody have access to these resources. So,
See what happens when we talk aloud? Okay, next time.
Along those same lines, I didn't find out about this until literally last night. I made a snap decision to attend this. I had difficulty obtaining access to things like up-to-date minutes and agendas and so on and so forth. But in addition to that, when I looked at the website, there was no clear guidance as to where I should look if I wanted to somehow contribute to the running of a library. There is no, how do I volunteer spot on your library webpage.
Okay.
You're not, there's no way for someone like this young man whose name I did not catch, or me, or anyone else, to essentially to volunteer, to say, here I am, put me to work. When I was in high school, I volunteered with the library, mostly sorting through large room full of moldy old paperbacks. Because my high school had a community service requirement. And I was just grunt labor. But I had to come up with a project and then put it into action. And for me, that was pretty simple. I went to the library and said, I have to do community service for my school. What kind of service do you need? So there is this pool of volunteer labor out there. There are people who love books and just want to be involved.
It's called Friends of the Library, but they're not doing much right now.
But if there's no clear way for them to say, first of all, yes, the library needs help with things, and here's who you have to be eligible to help with that, then you're not going to get that help.
Maybe this is one of the things that you can ask Kate to look into. Vivian, do you think that would be I think that would be way, since we're still evolving with our website.
We can, the only thing we can do is to put a link to the Friends in some way. We'll figure out some way.
And one additional thing, I didn't find out about the recent controversy about your collections policy through your website. I found out because I saw it on social media, and then I chased it down after that.
Right.
You have quite a large following on social media already, so if there are things that you want to know, if you point blank ask people, what do you think about this? I believe Facebook even has a polling tool, so that you could run a little straw poll right there on Facebook and get very quick feedback.
Well, thank you for letting us know, and I think part of it is we're just trying to refine our website, as you probably saw. It's new and upcoming. We're doing some other kinds of things with it. It's an improvement over the one that we had before. So we're still not saying and leaving out anything. We'll open up how we can do it and get better. So we thank you for those comments.
Thank you for hearing.
Okay. Anything else before that we can move on to the next item, which is, the director's evaluation process, Dr. Lett.
Okay, this should be short, simple, and easy, I hope. What you have in front of you, it's a two-page thing. Suggestion was made over the last month that we put an additional sheet in the evaluation form for just open-ended responses or something that somebody might have as a suggestion, almost like a forum, if you will. And so that was not in the original discussion of the administrative evaluation process. So I put together what I thought was told me, which is this sheet right here. And it just says additional information. Provide any additional information that you feel would assist in helping the library and event center operation for the next or future years. Items listed on this sheet should be items not already covered on the traditional evaluation. Enclose this sheet with your regular evaluation form and submit in the brown envelope by the requested deadline. And so put some lines on there for them to add. If they don't want to fill this out, well, you won't get anything, but there may be some ideas of something that's not on the regular form. Well, in order to approve that, we need to go back to what this sheet says. At the bottom it says originally approved November 4th. I have added item 2, which is that blank sheet. And so what I'm asking you to do is a motion to approve this updated one. And I put down at the bottom, new approval to include addition of item 2 shown above and today's date, December the 9th. And I have this on, it's in the computer, and I can send that to Vivian to attach as part of the minutes and so forth. But I think that was what you had told me you wanted, and so if you want it, we'll just need a motion, second, and approval to add that thing.
Could you give me just, this is going, who is getting this form and the accompanying forms? I guess I don't have the whole packet, so it's a big packet?
Right.
Okay.
The packet is a general evaluation of thing, and you're right, you need to see a copy of all of that.
And that's okay, I just want to know what it is.
I don't know, Vivian is printing them and will have them ready to mail out to board members by whatever day.
Oh, so they come to us?
Yeah, and there are two ways. The board members will get them in the mail like last year, and you fill them out and send them back, and they will all come to me. Then when I check them off and I see everybody has sent one and I don't open them, I will give them to whoever it says on here. Sandra Dupree will tally and summarize library board members. And then Debbie and Mary Jo Cooper will tally and evaluate what the staff turns in. And they'll be doing a similar thing, but it'll be a brown envelope, anonymous, that they turn in. And so there will be two members to summarize that, and there will be Sandra to do the staff, and then they will turn that into Dr. Clark, who will set up an appointment time with Vivian, and that's when that will be discussed.
So the rest of the packet that this is going to be attached to is an evaluation of the director or of the administration in general?
The rest of the packet, I think, has already been printed. Vivian, is that correct? It's ready to go.
But what they're going to ask us to, when it's mailed to us, they're asking us to evaluate, is it just the director or is it the entire
Just the
administration?
director.
Okay, all right, and I'm sorry to ask so many silly questions.
We did it last year.
And so I would probably feel, and I can tell you this later, but I probably won't evaluate the director since I haven't been on the board in that capacity to look at her. But I'd be happy to fill out this extra sheet on maybe general ideas for the library.
My first year on the school board, I elected not to evaluate the superintendent because I didn't know, I couldn't see or follow any of that and was caught blind with it, So I know your pain.
And I want to say that now so people don't think I didn't have any comments. It's just that I feel that would be appropriate for me to.
Well, I think you're right. A month's time or a couple of weeks would not.
Not today.
It's a big learning curve.
Yeah. Okay, Vivian, other business?
I had a quick question on other, but just looking back up, we talked on here, it says recommendations, the third item on the new business, recommendation of book policy, placement and selection. You said we dealt with that, but I just want to clarify, we did not adopt the policy, we said we would look at it.
No, I just read it aloud.
Okay, so we
It's
did
on
not,
the website, it's the materials.
that's our existing policy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did we get a motion and second and approval of this?
Yes.
Added to
I'm waiting.
item 2?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. No, I interrupted you with all my questions, and you didn't, I'm sorry.
You caused me to think of that.
I'm sorry.
Then I'll make the motion. I passed it out. I'll make the motion that we accept this amended with item 2 added, and that's the motion.
Okay, I'll second it.
All right.
We probably move in second. That we do what David has just said. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Absent.
I'm going to abstain just because I have to take hold back.
All right, motion carries. Vivian, reports and statistics.
I don't have statistics, they have not been, all of them have not been, have not come in to me yet for me to give you those. I would have had them for next week for our regular board day. But I do have some other business here. Dr. Vicki Willis is the director of the Center for Adult Education at Delta Community College. She has asked, I don't know if you're aware, but the Delta Community College is being demolished and they are rebuilding that. And they are in desperate need of classroom space. Now, what she had asked me to do, and I was willing to do it if this is something that the board feels like we should. One of the small study rooms, not the smallest one, but the largest study room that we have, beside the genealogy department, it holds 14 people. Lissandro Ramirez teaches English as a second language, and he would like to use that room. It would be from December, well, actually start today, December 9th, through the rest of this semester, and use it on a daily basis, Monday through Thursday. as a regular classroom.
What, how many hours?
From 8 until 4, Monday and Wednesday, Tuesday and Thursday until 8.
And how many people would he have in there?
He can hold up to 14.
I mean, does he know now?
He normally has around 8.
Okay.
Tuesday, Thursday from what to what? 8 to 8?
From 9 to 8.
9 to 8 at night?
Oh, at night or day?
So is he teaching a
From
variety
9 in
of
the morning
classes?
to 8 at
or what?
night?
He teaches English as a second language to various students depending on, some of them work during the day and they come for an evening class, but it is a classroom setting for all day.
Okay, is this an individual that people pay for him to teach?
No, this is the community college.
Oh, is
Would
this
be
another
one of their
Delta?
classrooms.
This is another Delta?
Yes.
Oh, okay, because you said Vicki Will is the adult ed.
She is his boss.
Oh, okay.
And she has given me a cooperative endeavor draft statement to see if y'all are interested. Would you let us do that? Would you let me do that for that period of time? We are not using those study rooms as of right now because of COVID. So it's not being used at all. It would require a little bit of cleaning. They're willing to do the cleaning themselves for that.
They sure have to wear masks and...
They would have to follow all of the same procedures. And then she sent me an email this morning saying that the classroom space that they still need 2 more spaces for adult ed classes that meet Monday through Thursday on the Ruston campus. And she just was basically saying, do you know of any place? Is it possible to use any place in the library? They are not able to pay us, and I don't think that we want to monopolize the event center because we wouldn't be able to use it ourselves if we did that. So I don't think that that's a possibility, but I told her I would ask if anybody here knew of a place that might be useful.
I know the place. The bridge has the old gym thing behind the old Temple Church. It's a beautiful space. It's used for these types of things. I don't think they charge. I have a student that I tutor that I've been meeting on there. It's classroom, really not. I don't know their schedule.
But this would be an ongoing classroom. It would not stop throughout the semester.
Right. They might be willing to talk to me.
So if you're willing to do that, then I would need to, for her to give me a regular cooperative endeavor.
Well, we have a resident attorney now that works for cheap for us, so I encourage you to look over that and see if I'm all of it and see, but now, are these people bringing children or?
No,
This is.
I told them they could not do that. That we will not babysit children.
Now,
Well, how long will it go for beyond December 9th to the end of the semester? When does the semester end?
You would ask me that question.
He's regular.
We were asked the same question, they said it could go as far as 18 months.
Yeah, this is not a little deal.
No, he didn't tell me that at
Yeah,
all.
I'm just saying that's what they asked us, I don't know what they asked you.
Okay.
They asked us, and they said roughly
They need to
18
find
months.
a
It will be close to 18 months before they get the building built.
Correct.
So they'll still need this place for a classroom. I wish they'd really look around before we close up our big study rooms.
Well, if you don't want us to do that, then that would be okay.
Well,
I mean,
then
it's up to
why
you.
don't we let them check the bridge, and if the bridge can accommodate, then we're not involved, but if they can't, well, I hate to not be a good neighbor.
Right,
But if there's-
I know Vicki, I know the high set. These are people getting the high set, the alternative certification. And it's, a lot of Hispanic or people that are still learning English. Some of them are in that group, and some are in there. They're not, they can speak English, but they'll be in the other one. But it's a lot of young, it's adults, like teenagers, young adults usually, trying to get their GED.
Well, my preference would be for the first one and not for the second. Not for the next 2 classes, but for the
No,
first
for that,
one.
I'm just asking, do you know a place? The first I'm asking is it possible for us to do?
Okay, the first one was the room we're not gonna use anyway.
way. We're not planning to use it for the next little while. I don't expect to use it before May anyway.
Why would we not use it?
Because we're not using any of the
But
stuff.
they can
But
come
we're
in.
putting them in as, yeah.
What I'm saying is we feel there's a danger and we're not using it, but we're gonna open the room that's a danger and we're not opening it to other people. Does that seem like a?
That's right.
See,
Because
that's
if
why
we're not
I'm
gonna
saying,
open
you've
up the
got
others,
like
then
15
our
people
routine
coming in
will
the
be-
library, and they don't, you know, we have no way to really monitor.
Well, it's just the fact that we can't use it because of COVID, but they can, and it seems like a conflict of how the room is defined and how safety it is, and we have people coming in and out, going in a room that's not safe enough for us to
And
use.
is it gonna be cleaned several times during the day?
That's what Hazel got her hand up. And Hazel,
That room is tight. You can call for 14 people, but it's really, really tight with 14 people in
Yeah,
there.
they can't maintain space between there for sure.
I was
I just don't, we might end up being liable.
We may
Because
have
there's
to
social
know.
distancing.
But my only thing too, Vivian, is if we're not gonna be able to use the other study rooms
That's right.
for the general public, I don't think that we should just use it for them. I'm just saying fair is fair. After all, the others are.
They may want to do it
As well.
for a year and a
That's my
half, and we just can't do that. We can't.
Let them, that you tell them to explore maybe some other areas and exhaust those areas. But if there are other areas, I'd be comfortable with them using another, maybe a bigger space. Like Hazel says, you put that class in there and they're not gonna sit like we are.
The only concern I think I would raise, and if you wanted, now, I want to clarify, this is a good time to do it. I am an attorney and I sit on this board, so I can tell you when I might see an issue.
Yes.
Your attorney, as the board, is still the parish attorney. So like, if you want to execute a contract, I'm always going to recommend, most likely, your parish attorney needs to look at this and just sign off on it, okay? So I don't want to be difficult in that vein, that yes, I'm an attorney and I can, give us some general advice along the way, but I'm going to point to that parish attorney when it's like, we need an opinion. Because I can't give you that opinion. That would be a conflict. I'm sitting on this board, okay? So I could go represent you today in a court of law because I'm now a member of this board.
Right, right.
Kind of an outside issue. So what I see with cooperative endeavor agreements, the first thing you gotta ask yourself is, do you have authority to do it, or does the police jury have to do it? Now, I don't know the answer to that, you do. Okay, great. The second thing you gotta ask is, does it have proper consideration? So we're giving up something, what are we getting in return? You have to have consideration in a cooperative endeavor agreement. What we're getting in return for this is that they'll provide an instructor for a minimum of 4 days per week, including 1 evening, for the sole purpose of educating residents of Lincoln Parish who need to improve their command of the English language. So that's what they're going to give us in return for them giving them the space?
Yeah.
Or is that their class?
That's their class.
So that's not going to work.
That's not
Okay.
Very good.
So,
Yeah, good deal.
Well, like I said, David, we would like to, but we'd like to consider us being good neighbors, but if we're being good neighbors, you have to always like yourself. I'm sorry, I ain't
The public, our public.
Anything else, Vivian, for the good of the cause? Hazel, anything for the good of the cause? No. Amy, for the good of the cause? Nothing further. What's her name? Humphreys. For the good of the Okay, anything else? Saying to do quick?
I move that we adjourn.
Wait a minute, you didn't let me finish my proposal.
I just wanted to thank everybody for what a good, united effort I think we made to explain a very uncomfortable situation and understand our position. And I just appreciate the public coming out twice. And, it tells you a lot. People love this library. They don't want to not be able to come. Everybody wants to participate, and I want them to. So I just wanted to say I was very, very pleased with that.
For the good of the cause, David, for that?
Well, I want to tell Amy that this meeting is a little extraordinary. They're usually not this long. So I just want you to have that in your mind. But, no, I don't have anything else.
That's a lie. He's a lie. I was like to say, I would also like to say thanks to everyone. And I'm especially grateful guys right here, all right? David's expertise coming in from having been in organizational management. Gabby's expertise talking about being a grandmother and won't let them read the books, okay? That's what she kept telling us, all right? Sandra's expertise, Sandra has been a librarian and still works at the library. Am I correct, Sandra? Three, okay. But they put in a lot of hours and time. And I didn't want to say in a big meeting, but we didn't get such good comments from the public. Some of the things that we got on our emails and our calls, and Lucius was right. Somebody wanted to come in from Canada. He said, you may not make it in time. Okay, but they were not always so kind in the remarks, the kinds of remarks like they made. But we still thank you for taking it and being able to do what we had to do because we were all dedicated to our cause. Hazel?
I want to thank the security.
I was going to thank you. I was going to thank him, and I want to thank KK and Caleb. And there's somebody else I want to thank. Sam, we're going to get you that steak here.
Well, I was gonna ask you, since we stayed late, is that y'all, take everybody out tonight?
And I just want to thank you all too for giving me the opportunity to provide a kind of leadership for the board. And we thank our two people back here on the back row here, Barb and Eric, for coming to us. And thank you guys.
Yes.
We appreciate you. Weren't you here Sunday?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, is it Vincent or?
It's Bedros. That's my last name.
I can't remember certain things. It's a 503 area code.
504. I'm from New Orleans. I'm from
Okay,
West
see
End.
that?
Wait, Bedros, you're not from St. Charles Parish, are you?
I have family there, probably.
Yeah, you do. I know that. I went to Homeville.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but we really thank everybody. And I am so glad that this is over today because I'm so tired and I think I'm going to get a good night's rest. And with that, may I have a motion for us to adjourn?
I make that motion.
Second. Probably move in second. And we adjourn. All in favor?
I can vote on that.
Thank you